What if I told you that scoring high points is no longer just enough to get an invitation to Australia to become a permanent resident? Yes, Australia has quietly changed the way that it invites people for the Subclass 189, affecting thousands, tens of thousands of people on their expression of interest. So don't just assume that just because you're scoring the highest amount of points that you will be invited. Today, I'll explain the 4-tier occupation system that the Department of Home Affairs has introduced for the Subclass 189. This will allow you to understand, plan, and strategize on what you need to do in 2026 to increase your chances of an invitation. Hi everyone, my name is Abby from Migration Centre of Australia. If you're new here, we provide updates on Australian immigration and how you can best increase your chances to succeed in any of the visas that we talk about, especially focused on skilled and family migration. So what is the Subclass 189? Subclass 189 is the federal invitation program where the federal government invites key people that they deem are required to help Australia grow, and those are the skills that Australia wants to develop and is in need for the Australian economy. Earlier, the invitations were based on submitting an EOI, scoring high points, and your occupation being on the medium to long-term strategic skill list. But the new 4-tiered system that they've introduced, this can have a very different outcome if you and someone else have the same amount of points, purely because this is now based on the occupations that they really want to invite. And that's why it's broken down into 4 tiers. So let's talk about Tier 1. Tier 1 is critical priority occupations focusing on medical professionals, nurses, and allied health professionals. If you fall in this category, there is a strong chance of an invitation, even if you have a lower amount of points. Now, Tier 2 is high priority occupations. This is for teachers, psychologists, and social workers. Now, you have to be strategic, make sure you're competitive in your occupation, but if you are competitive, there is a good chance of an invitation here. Tier 3 is medium priority occupations. This includes engineers, scientists, trades, or technical specialists. Now for Tier 3, there's still a good chance of an invitation, especially for trades because the competition is really low and the need in the Australian economy is really high. But for other occupations like engineers, scientists, technical specialists, just be careful depending on the occupation and how you compete with everyone else, just like you would have previously in the normal circumstances. Tier 4 is lower priority and occupations that are oversupplied, such as marketing specialists, ICT business analysts, accountants, chefs. Now, these will get lower priority and will be invited less because Australia doesn't deem that it needs as many people in this occupation. And if someone is in need of this occupation, they can be sponsored by a business if the business really needs that person. So I think the way that they've structured it is actually really smart for the economy because they'll focus on what Australia needs as an economy first, which are things like allied health professionals, doctors, nurses. Then the second category is what they'll focus on in terms of a skill set that they want to develop in Australia. So data scientists, cybersecurity, that's what they'll invite when it comes to the second priority and third priority. And teachers, all of these occupations that mainly I personally think are required for government roles to be filled, but the government can't sponsor these people necessarily. So they want to invite those people to bring them into the skilled market locally. Whereas for the Tier 4 occupations, I think it's important to understand that they think there's a huge supply because you can see this based off the competition and high points required for these occupations. Then businesses that really need these people should just end up sponsoring them anyway. So what this system allows the government to do is manage the oversupplied occupations and also focus on the critical sectors where they've identified skill gaps. So what should you do next? This requires, I think, in the same manner that you did before, a strategic approach to the 189, 190, 491, which we call General Skilled Migration, or GSM for short. Firstly, identify which tier your occupation fits into. If it's not Tier 1 or Tier 2, right? I would highly recommend also focusing on the Subclass 190 and 491. Understand the state's criteria. Is your occupation in your state list? If it's not, can you shift to another state that does have your occupation? What is the criteria for that state? Look for a state where the criteria is the most lenient to get an invitation. You should also consider how much time do you have left on your current visa. Ideally, anyone that's recently graduated in Australia and you're about to get onto a graduate visa, you should prioritize and focus on shifting straight away if your current state is not nominating you. This is important because if you shift early and you need to meet the residency requirements for that state, you can start doing that straight away. Why wait 1 year to see if the state will add your occupation later on? Now, this does happen, but it's not worth wasting time or taking risks. Usually the states will update their lists and let you know what occupations they're willing to invite you on around September to October in the new financial year. So yes, you can wait until that time and see if the list released has your occupation, and the list can be updated as well by the government sometimes. So make sure you continue to monitor that too. As a backup, we always also recommend finding a skilled job in your role to continue increasing your chances, firstly, of getting another job if necessary to increase your experience. You're increasing your points. You could potentially be sponsored if you're not invited, especially for occupations on the Tier 4 list. We highly recommend pursuing employer sponsorship versus trying to wait for an invitation, where there's less of a chance of that happening. If you have any questions regarding the new 4-tier system, general skilled migration, reach out to us or book a consultation for more information.